You're watching SEC Saturday on Mix 104.1 and MixTV.tv, presented by CHI Memorial.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to SEC Saturday, presented by CHI Memorial. I'm Stephen Shelton, co-hosting this week with my friend, for now, Joshua Rogers. Josh, it's we go from 4 to 2 this week.
Absolutely.
As Jason Cox is, I'm sure, begging and borrowing his way to vacation. And Steve is down, I'm sure, signing a contract for Disney to probably advertise on this radio station.
Listen, I miss Jason. Jason's always with us, and I love him to death, but thankful that Steve's not here. And, welcome back. I missed hiatus, 2 weeks off, come back for a week, go back to rehab for a week, and then now you're back again with us. So last week we missed you. I think the Tennessee-South Carolina game must have been pretty rough for you. You had South Carolina picked to win. Josh Heupel on the hot seat. And what happened? Here we are.
Well, you guys were wrong. I didn't put Josh Heupel on the hot seat.
You absolutely did.
I did not.
Hey, listen, we got receipts around here.
Okay,
right?
Dion, thanks. So, listen, let's get right into it. We're getting close to halfway through the point of college football, which is crazy to believe.
Yeah, unbelievable.
But as we start talking about, hot seats and teams that their seasons are over with and those types of things, let's talk about coaches that, hey, this could be it. This could be it. What's the most shocking, you believe, most shocking possible move in college football right now with a coaching staff or head coach?
Well, I think you look at Florida, right? I think you look at Florida,
Really?
and if you're looking around the SEC, right? I mean, the Sam Pittmans of the world probably gone, right?
Gone.
Jimbo Fisher is still keeping them up there and elevated, and I think Jimbo stays for another year. I think they're waiting for that buyout to get down to 30 or 40 million. I think there's a trillion. There's a buyout ticker clock I've seen where it's like 78 every day. It goes down like $100,000. The Sam Pittmans of the world, I think, are gone. I think Florida, you look at them. If they don't continue, they've got Georgia coming up. They've got some other big games coming up. But is Billy Napier is he on the way out? Even though he beat, Tennessee in a pretty big win. I think that's a pretty, a question mark there. If you look at the East, Stoops at Kentucky, not for being on the hot seat, but I think that you could see him head to a different program that is a little bit more perennial than Kentucky Wildcats.
So as we won't get ahead of ourselves, but there's a team in Baton Rouge that's 4-2 that has a chance today to go to 4-3 because they play an Auburn team who's coming off a bye week, who I think, although they played well against Georgia, losing 27-20. If Brian Kelly goes to 4-3 and finish this season, let's say 8-4, they've yet to play Alabama. They yet to some of these things. Is Brian Kelly 8-4? Does he get the boot?
No, not this year. No, it's his second year, and he had him in the SEC championship last year against Georgia. Obviously, Georgia destroyed LSU. Tennessee beat LSU pretty bad last year in Baton Rouge. I think that when you come off of Ed Orgeron winning a national championship and they let him go after literally, and to be honest with you, it's a good point. I mean, Ed Orgeron won a national championship, and then a year and a half later, he was gone.
That's what I was going to say. 8-4 LSU.
I just don't know who you get, right? Like, who do you go after if you're LSU?
Let me ask you a question.
Do you go after Lane Kiffin? Is that who you're going to say?
I tell you what. When you hang out with each other way too much, things like this happen.
Yeah.
Lane Kiffin leaves Ole Miss to go to LSU, who had resource-wise is the top of the nation. The LSU can provide you as many resources as Georgia or Tennessee or Alabama, whoever you want to talk about. Could Lane Kiffin find his way down to Baton Rouge with those resources and finally find himself a defensive coordinator other than his father, who could put LSU back in playing for a national championship, knowing that it's expanding next season?
I don't know. I think that Lane I think the only place that Lane goes other than Ole Miss is Alabama. And I don't know when that happens. I think that you see Lane. I think Lane is the guy. Everybody's always said Dabo, right? Everybody has always said that Dabo. But
just done. Yeah.
I think that Dabo stays at Clemson. I mean, I think that if there is somebody who has no hot seat ever, it's Dabo Swinney.
If you're Dabo, and we're getting off topic here, we are going to get to SEC games, believe me, but if you are Dabo Swinney, why do you ever leave Clemson? If you're not being run out of town, why do you ever leave a place that basically worships you?
No, you don't. You absolutely don't. I mean, he's happy there. That's where his home is. That's where his, foundations are. There is tons of money at Clemson. I just think the issue is that you've got people like Georgia, people like Tennessee, people like Alabama, people like Auburn who are recruiting in that same area, right? I mean, if Clemson and Florida State eventually, and we'll bring this back to the SEC, if Clemson and Florida State end up leaving the ACC, moving to the SEC, which is very highly debated, highly talked about right now.
And highly likely at this point.
Absolutely. The resources that you get for being in the SEC are tenfold compared to the ACC. And you take what they're doing in NIL, you take what they're doing at Clemson with that, and what they're trying to accomplish there. It's hard to recruit, if you're Clemson, to recruit in Georgia, to recruit in South Carolina, to recruit in North Carolina, to recruit in Florida and Tennessee and all these areas when you've got Georgia, #1 team in the nation, when you've got Alabama, still a perennial powerhouse, when you've got Josh Heupel and Tennessee recruiting like they have, you've got Florida State, #3 or 4 team in the nation.
Well, when you've got a top 10, I believe, a top 10 North Carolina team.
Absolutely.
And I think a top 25 Duke team.
Yes.
I think they have also put some additional pressure on the ability to recruit with the NIL. The NIL is what's really driving everything.
I'll give you a name of somebody that I think that will be the next head coach in the SEC. Kalen DeBoer, head coach of University of Washington.
Okay.
Huskies.
Okay.
You can see what they're doing right now. Number 8, number whatever team in the nation. I think that you got a guy that can get out of that Big 12, Big 10, whatever the heck they're in, and come over to the SEC. I think that
Pac-2.
Yeah, Pac-2. Is that where are they still in the Pac? So I think that you see that. I think that's a big one. There's going to be a lot of coaching positions open this year. Lincoln Riley out of USC.
Does he go to the NFL?
Absolutely. Yeah, Chicago. He's gone. You've got, Florida that might be gone. LSU is another one. You've got Arkansas. You've got Mississippi State. You've got Kentucky. I mean, there's going to be a lot of open positions. So I think that it's going to be interesting to see. And, heck, to be honest with you, Oklahoma, the best thing that happened for Tennessee last week, Oklahoma beating Texas. And why is that? Josh Heupel's not going to Oklahoma to be the head coach next year. He's got another year at Tennessee.
Well, but I do think the Oklahoma joining the SEC is really changing his ability to go there, and so his buyout's a little different if he tries to go, and so I think that really changes it. Listen, you're listening to or watching on MixTV.tv the SEC Saturday presented by CHI Memorial. Stephen Shelton along with Josh Rogers. It will be the best show of the year because one, Steve Hartline, who is he said he didn't like riding the rides at Disney World. I've got with good video confirmation he's too short to ride the rides at Disney World. Yeah, he can't again. It's kind of sad when Holden looks back and said, "I'll see you when we get done, Daddy." And so
absolutely,
it really is. And then Jason Cox, who I'm sure is who has begged, borrowed, and stealed his way to vacation.
Don't even know where he went.
He didn't even tell us if he was going anywhere.
No, just didn't show.
We're going to take a quick break. We'll be back for our final segment. It's going to be a long segment.
Yep.
Talking about 4 SEC games today. Big Saturday here. SEC Saturday presented by CHI Memorial. Back in 2 minutes.
You're watching SEC Saturday on Mix 104.1 and MixTV.tv, presented by CHI Memorial.
Welcome back to SEC Saturday, presented by CHI Memorial. I'm Stephen Shelton, joined by my co-host today, Joshua Rogers. The commish is with us. Josh, let's go to the games today. It's a 7:30 kickoff, SEC Network. number 24 Kentucky host Missouri. Both teams are 5-1, but both teams have had possibly, other than Kentucky playing Georgia, the weakest start of any schedule in college football.
Yeah, I mean, well, Kentucky played number 22 Florida. I mean, they were ranked. They obviously played Vandy and Akron and Ball State and Eastern Kentucky.
As I was saying.
Absolutely. Yeah. But played Georgia last week, got blew out 51-13. I know we're not going to talk about Georgia this week, but, very happy to be a dog this week, finally, for once this year. You see that game, and then you look over to the Missouri side, and you look at them, and they haven't really played a whole lot of people either. They lost. Their only loss is to LSU,
who they were up on,
who they should win. And to me, I think that this Missouri team, while they might be ranked a little bit, I think Kentucky's ranked 24th and Missouri's not even ranked. I definitely think that should be switched. I mean, I think Missouri is so much of a better team. And what I love about this is that, and I hope there's no Missouri fans out there, but the bottom feeder of the SEC East, right?
Oh, it's Missouri and Vandy. Not just the SEC East, it's the SEC.
Right, and that these teams are finally, and again, strength of schedule, throw it out the door. I totally get it.
They did.
But a 5-1 Missouri in the middle of the year is pretty good.
Who has the ability to go 6-6 on the year?
6-6.
If you look at their schedule,
yeah,
they have a tremendous opportunity to finish the season 1-5.
Well, listen, I mean, if they win today, right? Okay. Missouri wins today, they're going bowling. Well,
they win today, they're in the top 24. They win today, Kentucky's season is really in shambles all of a sudden.
Yes.
I think this is a pivotal game for Kentucky more so than Missouri. Missouri, if you go bowling in Missouri right now, you've done a pretty good job. Kentucky, though, is trying to get to that second tier, and they have to win this game.
I think Missouri gets to that second tier this year. I'm looking at their schedule here. Kentucky, South Carolina, Georgia, Tennessee, Florida, and Arkansas. I mean,
that's what I'm saying.
I'm looking at 6 games here where they could go 3-3.
They could, and that would be an 8-4 season. But they also, like I was saying, they could go 1-5 to finish 6-6.
They could, but I mean, Arkansas would be a win. I think Kentucky's a win. I think South Carolina could be a win. I think then you look at Florida, and that could be a toss-up. I mean, it's at Missouri.
Yeah,
so I mean that's a big game.
Well, the one good thing Missouri has going for them is Devin Leary, the quarterback for Kentucky, has thrown 5 there. He's almost throwing an interception per game right now for Kentucky, and then Kentucky's defense has had to bow their back. Kentucky's a 2.5-point favorite in this game, so we'll see what happens against 7:30 SEC Network. Let's move on.
Who do you got?
Who do I have?
Yeah.
I think Kentucky wins this game because it's at Kentucky. I'm going with the Big Blue.
All right, we'll split. I'll take Missouri.
You take the Tigers.
Yeah.
We'll see if you take the I'll tell you what, I'll take the Tigers in this next game. Okay. Auburn goes to LSU 3-2 against 4-2 LSU. 7:00 ESPN. LSU's an 11-point favorite in this game. Auburn's coming off back-to-back losses to Texas A&M 27-10 and Georgia 27-20. They did get a bye week last week. Got some guys healthy. Maybe shored up a few loose ends on that offense. LSU is their offense is putting up 458 yards per game, but their defense is giving up 445 yards per game. LSU lost last week, 55-49. Does my heart well, even when Lane wins. 2 weeks ago, then bounced back and won a difficult game in Missouri, 49-39. Jaden Davis this year is 132 of 181. And has thrown for almost 2,000 yards and 19 touchdowns. His elbow's got to be sore. Josh Rogers, what says you?
Well, I say the Tigers are going to win, but I think it's going to be the Tigers in blue and orange.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I think that if you look right now, I think that Auburn is playing so much better than LSU's defense. LSU's offense, high power, absolutely wonderful. Earlier we talked about does does Brian Kelly get fired and does Lane Kiffin go down there and finally find a defensive coordinator? Well, Brian Kelly needs to find a defensive coordinator. They just need to find somebody on defense. I was looking at the time of possession clock for LSU in comparison. Well, I say the Tigers are going to win, but I think it's going to be the Tigers in blue and orange.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I think that if you look right now, I think that Auburn is playing so much better than LSU's defense. LSU's offense, high power, absolutely wonderful. Earlier we talked about does Brian Kelly get fired and does Lane Kiffin go down there and finally find a defensive coordinator? Well, Brian Kelly needs to find a defensive coordinator. They just need to find somebody on defense. I was looking at the time of possession clock for LSU in comparison to their opponents, and if LSU's offense wasn't so high power and amazing, and Jane Daniels isn't doing what he's doing, and probably one of the top 7 or 8 quarterbacks in the entire NCAA right now, I don't know if LSU wins 2 games this year. They are not. They're in that spot right now where they are trying to find an identity in that secondary. When you have a team like LSU, the only thing that I think that keeps this game close is Death Valley. I mean, you've been there, I've been there. It is hard to win a game in Tiger Stadium,
especially at night.
Oh my gosh! I mean, when you go down there at night and them Cajuns been drinking all day long and partying and having a great time, it gets raucous and it gets rowdy. And I think that Auburn, with as young of an offense as they've had and as young of a team it is, if this was Georgia going in there, if this was Alabama or Tennessee where they've had that coaching experience and they've been playing together for a long time, that's a different story. Auburn, on the other hand, new head coach in Hugh Freeze this year, new offensive coordinators. But if you look at Auburn, big wins against obviously Samford, Cal. They've won against Massachusetts. They're 3-2 on the season with losses to Texas A&M. That really wasn't close, but they played Georgia so close. Took a week off to be able to prepare for this game. Had bye week last week, and you're doing everything. LSU is an 11-point favorite in this game at night at home.
But you're taking Auburn.
Yeah, I'm gonna take Auburn.
About the Gators and the Game Chickens and the Aggies and Vols. We'll be back in 1 minute. You're listening and watching SEC Saturday, presented by CHI Memorial.
You're watching SEC Saturday on Mix 104.1 and MixTV.tv, presented by CHI Memorial.
Welcome back to SEC Saturday. I'm Stephen Shelton. My co-host today is Joshua. Don't call me the Commissioner Rogers. Josh, I tell you, we've lost Steve this week due to his just taking his kids to Disney. He can't ride any of the rides.
Yeah.
He's still looking for Space Mountain. Him and Ric Flair, I don't really know. I'm just glad Jennifer's with them, so they'll make their way back. And they flew down there. Could you imagine driving with Steve to Orlando?
I can't imagine driving to Steve to Ooltewah. And
I have.
Yeah, we did a couple weeks ago for the Ooltewah East Hamilton game. And no, I would pray Jennifer would drive all the way to Orlando. If there's one person that needs defensive driving, really offensive driving, just needs to learn how to drive, be Steve Hartline. So driving all the way from here to Florida, I've done that many of times for dance and other things.
Quite possibly the worst driver in Cleveland, and that says a lot about Cleveland.
Do you remember back in the day where they had the beer goggles at the sheriff's department where you can get in and try and drive a golf
He drives
cart
with
around
those on
all day long.
Yeah,
I mean it's unbelievable.
He does drive with those on.
So I wish we could see a video of him driving with those. I wonder if he'd drive better.
I would love to put like one of those dash cams in his car and just
follow
follow him around and see how many people maybe give him a sign language and blow their horn at him during.
Keep it between the the lines.
That's not happening.
No.
Yeah, it's not happening. Let's move to South Kakalaka to the Game Chickens. They'll host. They're 2-3 after their trouncing in Knoxville 41-20 against a team that beat Tennessee. 3:30 kickoff. SEC Network. Gators, Gamecocks. They said this week Spencer Rattler, who's 119 of 163 at 1,400 yards in the air, could be a first rounder. They
Jeez.
will host.
Ain't no way.
Well, after Anthony Richardson went first round, I believe anybody can. They will host a damaged and beaten and plucked Game Chicken team, Josh. But at the end of the day, South Carolina's a 2-point favorite in this game.
Are they still a favorite?
They were.
They are. Yeah, and it's at home, and I think that's just I mean, I think that line probably goes down to even. Over under on it's 51 points. So I mean, that's what 25,
which is dropped.
25
It's almost 60 when it started. Yeah,
25 and a half apiece, so 3 touchdowns. So that to me, that tells me that's a pretty close game in Florida or in South Carolina this week. If you look at Florida, right, they've won against Tennessee, won against McNeese.
That's the third time you brought that up, and I want to let you know.
Won against Vandy.
It was
lost
a long
against
drive
Kentucky. You know, I mean. You look at Florida and who have they really played? You know, they played Tennessee, obviously, but
terrible Tennessee team down there. Not even close.
They were horrible.
Yes.
You know, and that game was still while they, you know, okay, I'll give
score was different.
Score was different. It was still a close game.
It really, if you take that, not to jump in, but you take that game and you take one blindside block that was let's rub shoulders and nobody falls down. You take that away, Tennessee scores. That's a 7-point game all of a sudden. So, but they played very well.
South Carolina comes up and goes against a juggernaut, rejuvenated Tennessee team after that loss to Florida. Gets destroyed in Knoxville. I mean, and it was a complete. That was, I think, offensively and defensively in that game. I think that was probably one of Tennessee's first complete games that they've played over the past 2 seasons.
I think defensively, that's the best game they've played in 10 years.
Absolutely. Yeah. But looking at South Carolina, close game against Georgia, okay? Blowout against Tennessee, and that's only because of their defense. Loss against UNC, who is, we've all said all season, they're an amazing team.
Yeah.
Give me the Game Chickens against the Gators in this game, not just because they're at home, but I think that this 2-3 South Carolina team really is kind of on that verge of where these 3 losses might be their only ones left, right? I mean, might be the only ones they have the rest of the season. I look at that Tennessee and that Georgia. They've played Georgia. They played Tennessee. They've lost to UNC. Who else they got to lose to unless they're just going to continue that spiral down?
I hate Florida.
Yeah, me too.
I mean, with all my soul. But I'll say this. I couldn't stand Shane Beamer. I think he's the biggest
You were crowning him the next pope of SEC.
But I'll say this. Brew McCoy gets hurt.
Yep.
Shane Beamer walks onto the field, pats him on the helmet, looks down, says something. Matter of fact, South Carolina's medical staff, as soon as McCoy went down, it was on their side of the hash.
Yep.
Sprinted out there.
Yeah.
Probably one of the most showing of sportsmanships I've ever seen in college football. To take what really was none of their business, if you think about it from a medical standpoint, to really just taking over until Tennessee could get out there, and then staying with Tennessee, holding up towels, really doing a good job of keeping the cameras off of him because it was a brutal ankle injury. I'm going to take, as bad as I hate to, Shane Beamer and the Game Chickens to beat the Gators, to upset the Gators as well in South Carolina today.
Hey, real quick, before we go to our next game, this is for our buddy Steve.
Okay.
All right?
Yep.
Here is my Ivy League game of the week. I know. Princeton versus Brown at 12 o'clock on ESPN Plus. Nobody will watch it.
Does anybody know who you taking?
I'm going to take Brown just because.
Does anybody know why Steve does this?
No.
You don't know the story behind this?
Is it because of Dr. Khan?
No, it's not. Steve, when he was in high school, applied to every Ivy League school and did not get one letter back. And this is his way of trying to still be a part of the Ivy League. But he did. He literally sent letters, application into every Ivy League school in America and did not get one letter back. Ended up at Lee and then takes over a radio station.
Well, as much advertising as goes on to this place, Holden be able to go to any Ivy League school.
Yeah, they'll be able to buy one.
Yeah.
Tennessee today hosts the Aggies of Texas A&M, 3:30, Mix 104.1 WCLE. If you want to watch it, go to CBS but turn it down because of who will be calling the game. Tennessee 3.5-point favorite in this one. It's Checker Neyland Day on the Hill. This will be one of the greatest traditions in college football as Neyland Stadium is checkered in orange and white as they host A&M. Josh, A&M is only giving up 84 yards per game on the ground, while Tennessee is rushing for almost a national league lead, 231 yards per game on the ground. They'll be without Brew McCoy. They'll have Squirrel White in his place, who made an amazing catch this last game. A&M coming off a 26-20 loss to Bama. They played really well. Bama had about a 10-minute streak there that they were invincible, that gave them that victory in Tennessee coming off a bye week. What says you, sir, about the game in Knoxville?
What says me is that Tennessee's defense better show up like they did against South Carolina. If they didn't, it's going to be a long, long day in Knoxville, and it's going to be a long ride home for a lot of Tennessee fans. Texas A&M's offense is at this point where it's kind of clicking on all cylinders. Their defense is very good. I mean, you can see yards allowed on the year, 268, 84 rush yards a game, like you said. That's really all Tennessee's had this year, right? They've only had rushing.
Three-headed monster, really.
And when it comes to offense, Joe Milton, I mean, even in that game that they beat South Carolina, still was not throwing the ball like he should. I think when I look at this game, it's a 3-point dog right now for Tennessee, given 3.
Over under about 56.
Yeah, 55 right now. Yeah, being in Tennessee, being a 3:30 kick, CBS game, I don't know. I mean, to me, this is one of those toss-up games. Give me Texas A&M to beat Tennessee in Knoxville and continue that downward slide for Tennessee, and will be outside of the top 25 at the end of this week.
Well, I picked. I don't ever like to go against my word. I took A&M to win the West.
You did.
Now they hurt themselves last week with Alabama. Alabama still got a lot of football to play. I still think this A&M team, no matter how far Jimbo gets on the field and gets lost during the games, I still think this A&M team is, if not the best team in the West, one of the top 2 teams in the West.
Yeah.
I don't think Tennessee has the ability, unless Mays does a great job of controlling the offensive line like he did against South Carolina. But I'm not sure that defense can dial up 2 consecutive games as they did this last week. I'll take A&M in a close one. I do think I think the over. I'm taking the over. I think it's more than 55 points combined between these 2 teams. I think it could be a shootout. But I think A&M at the end pulls off the win.
Wow. I think that's it's very telling of where, as a diehard Tennessee fan, where you think the trajectory of this season is going for you guys.
I think the future is bright. I just think there's too many holes to fill, and I think you've got a position receiver like Brew McCoy going down. That's a lot. It's a lot to try to ask just from a leadership standpoint. But regardless, we got 5 seconds. We're going to throw it for Josh Rogers. I'm Stephen Shelton. Next week, Stevie will be back. Off to the Vol Network.